Hi, beautiful souls. It's Tan back here again today with you on this Astrology, Human Design, and Jinkies channel. And I'm here today with the Tan Astrology team with Adriana, Cindy, and Sarah. And we're continuing our Planets in the 12th House series. And today we're doing Mercury in the 12th house. So before we begin, let's define together first what Mercury represents in the birth chart. Sarah, would you like to...
Yeah. So Mercury is this planet that's associated with communication and subject-object relationship. And it can be represented by the Greek god Hermes, also Roman god Mercury, which is where we get the name from, or the Egyptian mythology of Thoth. So this is a messenger god. This is bringing information that's to include writing, and just any kind of way that communication can be carried from one place to another. So that includes transportation as well, especially short distance travel, organizing information. We think of Virgo because Mercury is exalted in Virgo and it is at home in Gemini. So these zodiac signs that are associated with communication and getting information across.
Thank you, Sarah, for the interpretation of Mercury. And as we're filming Mercury in the 12th house, Adriana has lost her connection because her lights went out in her building. So hopefully she'll be back on soon. But yeah, so Mercury, this planet, like you just mentioned, coming into a house that, well, has to do with things, places where things go to kind of disappear and die, and the house that has to do with dreams and sleep and the collective unconscious, and sometimes also foreign lands. So how do you guys feel about Mercury in the 12th house? What has been your experience or interpretation of this?
Well, I'll just mention that Mercury can also be, if you think about like nerve endings too, and so like how communication or information can be transmitted through things like the internet, even though that's a little bit more Uranus, but like nerve endings, mycelial strings, there's information that mushrooms are passing to each other and to other trees. For instance, if trees need nutrients, then they can pass, some of that through their networks too. So in this way, you can think about that kind of information getting passed from one place to another also. So
I love that you mentioned that, which is not really mentioned most of the times when we talk about Mercury. And I really love that you mentioned that because this is maybe how Mercury in the 12th house people kind of operates, even with regards to their biology and things, and them being able to, with regards to their nervous system and their nerves, sort of either need to be alone in order to have that, activated and in a very creative way, have those nerves going like that, or, maybe being around people, like being the public, and then having those nerves be like overactive and things like that, because they're just connected to so many things. And that's maybe one of the reasons why Mercury in the 12th house people need that time alone to have their nerves working in the correct way.
We can kind of associate this with kind of having a little bit of anxiety or self-confidence with communicating and delivering a message. And also I like the imagery of with mushrooms, it's generally underground where the mycelium is growing. So it's in that way, very 12th house to be underground.
Yeah, just almost like Mercury in the 12th house people can make these connections with things that are not easily seen by the world. And so I like to look at this placement as somebody that is able to be a messenger of the spirit realm, almost psychic in so many ways.
Yeah. Yes, but I often have the feeling that they have to learn to listen in order to be the channeler. Like sometimes I think they have a very intense mind and very strong opinions, and they like to talk. So often they talk so much that they forget to listen, if it is to other people or to even themselves. And if they learn to listen, then they learn to channel these voices or insights that they are getting. And then also other people can learn to listen to them and actually get the messages that is maybe meant for other people's subconscious.
I was about to say, it doesn't need to be like psychic. We see a lot of imagination and imagination work from here. So again, screenwriters, those people who can create worlds just using their mind, characters, personas, like just full worlds just out of their imagination. So it's kind of interesting to see how, it can be imagination, it can be a connection to the divine, whatever you want to call it. What comes out of that, it's always just beautiful, deep, and is something really new that speaks to the collective. So
yeah, I just wanted to mention that for the people who are watching, that if you have Mercury in the 12th house, this is the case. But if you don't have Mercury in the 12th house and you have some Mercury-Neptune contacts, that can also create this imagination, this ability to create new worlds as well.
Yeah, because Mercury is associated with consciousness itself. And so in that way, like the imagination or any kind of contact with the beyond, the spirit realm, is going to be like really a strong ability for somebody with Mercury in the 12th house.
And I think the sign that Mercury is in is going to play a role in terms of how this person might take those messages and present that to the world. Whether it's going to be, because it might not always be in terms of words or writing. Maybe it can be with regards to using the hands to create or to make something. Because Mercury can also represent that. It does partially rule Gemini, which is has to do with the hands. But it can also be words. It can also be via like talking to people, the way you connect with people and sharing it in that way. So it depends, like the signs would, or music, it depends on how that would play out.
absolutely. I mean, a Mercury in the 12th needs some kind of vessel, because there's a lot going on here, right? In the mental plane, there's a lot of activity, a lot of things going on. And, this person needs to vent. This person needs to have a journal. This person needs to have their own world, but, created outside of them, or else, it can be just disruptive of the mind function, because you're in your mind so much that you lose your sense of reality. So this anchoring to the vessels, to channeling, to just creating something outside of you, it's a way to use this activity in a good way.
Yeah, the word downloads is something that I associate with Mercury in the 12th house. Somebody that's able to receive messaging that's kind of like a big aha moment. And so this can come from dreams too, where we were talking about Mars in the 12th house is nightmares for me. But Mercury in the 12th house is just information that they're able to gather. So dream arc, kind of investigating Carl Jung, dream interpretations, those kinds of things remind me of Mercury in the 12th house too.
And I want to mention here as well that when it comes to like problem solving, because Mercury can be that planet that, can kind of be logical and problem solves. And when you come to a Mercury in the 12th house person to solve problems, I find that they solve it via imagination and possibilities and creativity, rather than this was the ABC and this would be the solution. They don't really solve it in that way. So that was interesting that I discovered with them.
Yes, that's so true. Like when I was talking with people with Mercury in the 12th house, they were saying that they have like this imaginary world and they see all these possibilities. They have the visions of like this, like something great happening, or like all this good stuff coming in. And then they're talking about it. And then other people are seeing that not everything of what they're talking about is coming true, of course, or other people don't see it like they do. And then others are kind of disappointed, or like they they're just living in another reality, let's say. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think a way of communicating for these people can be subliminal message. So something that it's not very, it's there, you're seeing it. It's just influencing people and society, because the 12th house is very related with the collective. It's just contributing, making an art piece that, it is not telling you something directly, but it's inspiring you to think differently, or just see things from another perspective. And yeah, it's just tricking you into just receiving a message. And yes, it can be frustrated if you don't realize this about yourself, that maybe you don't express things super directly. You kind of build ornaments around them, but at the same time, you can use it to inspire others and to deliver a message in a very unique way.
Yeah, on the note of 12th house being to do with foreign travel, and so, or foreign affairs, somebody that maybe could translate different languages, because Mercury is associated with communicating and translating and symbolism. So I imagine, I don't know this for sure, but I would think that somebody with Mercury in the 12th house would have that ability to, learn different languages and be able to translate messages that way.
Oh yeah, and even business, I would totally see that in a Mercury in the 12th house person. It's just, you know what, if you don't feel like you are obtaining the success, or just feeling comfortable in your space, country, culture, society, move. Or connect via internet to the world, expand. Don't sit in one place, let your mind wander. That can be mentally and like physically, or just just go away for some time, or connect with other people, other cultures. That's gonna bring more opportunities, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about like language, because you mentioned what Sarah was saying. I think Mercury in the 12th house people can be good at that, but I think they have a different way of doing it. You know how normally when you learn a language, there can be like a structural way to learn it, which is like grammar, kind of like noun, verb, whatever, and then you kind of put it in there and then you make sense, and that's how you learn. But I think Mercury in the 12th house has a different way of learning languages, where they're a little bit more like they could really benefit from having the person in front of them and then reading what's behind what that person actually says in terms of their body language, their gestures, and match that with the words that the person is trying to say. So I think that that's how they can pick things up. It's almost, you can say, like intuitively, but it's also a connection that's being made with whatever's being presented in a new way.
Yeah, I think it's almost like they're actually reading what the other person doesn't say, maybe.
Yeah.
The hidden message.
Yeah.
And it's not only like, you were saying like maybe connected to behavior or whatever. It can be symbols, because Jung and his whole thing with dreams, it came back to symbols. Or Mercury in the 12th can also mean learning the language of the stars. So astrology, connecting to symbols. That can be dreams, that can be actual foreign language, but it can be anything, like behavior patterns. Just communication is such a broad concept. So it's just it's for you to figure out what language is yours. So it's a beautiful placement, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, communication is not just words, it's your face. I mean, I could be turning your videos off and then hearing, But then when I look at your face, it may be something completely different from what I'm actually hearing. So I think there's a lot of layers into how we communicate.
Yeah, nonverbal communication too, like you were saying, like even things like, you know, using your hands when you talk or that kind of thing. I imagine that would be something, you know, that this placement might utilize a lot, talking with your hands.
Yeah.
Well, that brings me to, you know, not to say that astrology is predictive in this way, but different forms of communication, such as sign and that kind of thing, and being adept with learning that kind of different language. So using the body that way too.
So do you guys feel like there are anything challenging about this placements?
I do.
Yeah.
An escapist mind. You know, when you don't get inspiration, it can get frustrating, and you go look for things that bring you inspiration. And that can be a whole spectrum of things. So you need to get comfortable having a silent mind, because when like Mercury going retrograde, that's going to be a difficult thing on your mind, on your mental health, even because you are used to this mind and just creating and solving and learning and all of these things, Mercury related, and all of a sudden that stops, or it's just a period of revision. That can be really triggering of those escapist behaviors. 12th house.
Yeah, and I mean, Mercury is also that planet that rules our day-to-day habits and routines. And Mercury operates like minute by minute, you know, and if it's in the 12th house, it's almost like people with Mercury in the 12th house are in the 12th house or need to be in the 12th house on a daily basis. So sometimes you'll find that if you have to do something more structural with them or plan something with them at a particular time, they may not always get it right. They could plan, they may be late. Or some of them may be like very overactive, and so they feel they have to be extremely early so they are not late. So there could be that, you know, losing sense of time on a day-to-day basis as well. And sometimes it's kind of like you want to communicate with them, but they disappear and you can't find them. And sometimes you send messages to Mercury in the 12th house people and they've read it, but they don't necessarily respond right away because they get overwhelmed with data and information, and maybe they need time to process and to feel into that. And so that's, I think, something that can be a bit challenging.
Yeah.
I also have a friend who's got the Mercury in the 12th house, and it is happening so often that there are misunderstandings, or that he's explaining something and then I try to understand it, and then it's like, it's not what I meant, and I'm like, okay, explain it again. So I think they have like this very logical, or like what is going on in their mind is logic for them, and it's normal. So, and then they are trying to bring it into words, and that can be difficult for others to really understand.
It's
Yeah.
logic. It's the get on the train.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
I mean, if this is your chart ruler, if you have Virgo or Gemini on the rising and you have Mercury on the 12th, this is also very true to your identity. So just an heads up here.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something about business previously, Adriana. I think that, you know, Mercury in the 12th house, if you do business with foreigners or some kind of trade that involves things that have to be exported or go overseas or online via the internet, which is what I associate with the 12th house as well, I think that works better. Or even just like communicating with foreigners or people who are not of the same background as you or live in the same place as you, that tends to work a lot better with Mercury in the 12th house. I think maybe it's because it's, you know, when you're limited to your community, it can be hard to find people that can actually understand or speak your language. But when you open that doorway up to the whole world, then you're able to find people who you can connect with a little bit more. There's more possibilities there.
When I think about Gemini too, I think about like early childhood education. And so I wonder if that being misunderstood as a child has a lot to do with how anxiety could develop from public speaking or communicating your message. It's like some of these things don't come out right, and this is a wound because this happened in childhood or early childhood.
Yeah, I mean, it has been said that Mercury in the 12th house can have this period where they're not able to speak for whatever reason that is. There's many different interpretations of that, but there is that period there.
I also like to bring up that Mercury is the trickster god, and you can think of like Loki. So I just imagine this person being very covertly, manipulative, but maybe not in that word. Like that's the word that came to my mind, but I'm just thinking of like tricks and like, ways of getting your message across in like coded ways or in patterns or in magic or that kind of thing. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in the negative, but we can think of Loki as good or bad. Like in this way, like Mercury itself is really ambiguous. It's one of the planets that isn't necessarily assigned a gender, despite the fact that we tend to refer to Mercury as he. But either way, it's interesting with that ambiguity and this idea of being a trickster and getting to kind of fulfill many different roles in your life. Like maybe this inability to be understood allows you to experiment with a lot of different identities in that way.
Yeah, I mean, Mercury in the 12th house has a direct access, has some very strong access to the collective unconscious, and in terms of the archetypes that they can kind of play with and use that. Not that to say that they're aware, but to use that in some ways to kind of get people to come to their side or to persuade people, because they can access almost like someone's unconscious in some ways. And I think sometimes Mercury in the 12th house people have a very romantic way of speaking or of writing that can be something. It's like gentle. There's a gentleness and a romance to it that makes the people around them fall into their the web of their beauty or their schemes, whichever one they want to use. It's up to them.
Yes. I associate Mercury a lot with, and Gemini energy a lot with, I don't know if you remember Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. He's just like the smartest character, but he goes behind the scenes to work his plans and his schemes and to get what he wants. And it's like he's always a step ahead, and he's like planning the events, and then like, oh my god, that happened. And it was his plan all along. So yeah, I know this is kind of giving a bad reputation for this placement, but the thing is like, I can also see how this can work in with a counselor or someone that gives speeches, because you're going behind the scenes, people's behind the scenes, to show them things and bring light to things that they were not aware of. So is that duality of being the trickster.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you mentioned how he's like planning ahead and like talking to himself and like almost having this communication with himself in the future. And of course, we always like to highlight some celebrity charts. And so one of them that I focused on was Adele and her song Hello from the Other Side. So I thought that was like so Mercury in the 12th house. And then Tom DeLonge also has this placement, and one of his songs is Don't Waste Your Time on Me, You're Already the Voice Inside My Head. And so that's also very Mercury in the 12th house. I don't know that he wrote the lyrics to the song, but you can't say that song without his voice. So
And even Teal Swan has Mercury in the 12th house. Not to say anything about that, but I mean, I know that there's like a lot of controversies out there about her, and Yeah, she's just very persuasive, when she talks about spiritual topics. And I think that, some people, I mean, depending on how you hear her messages, it can be interpreted as manipulative in some ways. But of course, you always want to, listen to spiritual teachers with a certain amount of discernment. You don't want to fall head over heels for their concepts and their ideas. You always want to have some rational head as well. But Teal Swan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because she's also communicating her trauma of being kind of raised in the way that she was raised with the community. And I noticed that, and I don't know how accurate the birth time is for this individual, but Malala Yousafzai, and I'm not pronouncing her last name correctly, but you'll know that there was an attempted assassination on her, and she has made that communicating that message very important in her life. I mean, that's how we know her. So communicating trauma from that 12th house of this bad spirit is also the way that we're kind of seeing that arise with Teal Swan as well.
Wow. Yeah. Well, do you guys have anything else that you want to add to Mercury in the 12th house for today?
Put it out there.
Any messages, any advice? Yeah, for people who have this.
Yeah, just speak it, write it, do it, create it. Just before this meeting, I was like joking around saying like I got all dolled up because this is my chance of becoming a main character for someone with Mercury in the 12th. So I was like, this is my chance. I gotta look nice.
They could be so good at acting as well, this placement.
Oh yeah.
That's true.
Just do it. Create your own world. If you need inspiration, I'm here. Just kidding, but yeah, do it.
Take time to listen.
Yeah, like get an alarm or a calendar and check your numbers again when you have any kind of appointments and things. Because that can drop. Some numbers can drop,
Yeah, opening up that space for receiving those messages from the genies or, whatever spirit may like to inhabit you and create through you. That's a really good way, opening the meditation and allowing that to be the vessel within which the gods can, take action.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for today. And if you guys are watching out there and you have this placement, just feel free to comment below and share your experiences with us. And if you guys are interested in getting a reading from any one of us in the Tan Astrology team, then head over to my website, tanastrology.com. We would love to be your guides on your self-discovery journeys. So that's it for today. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Bye. Is Adriana frozen?
Yes.
Oh my God, Mercury. What's happening?
Yep. So Mercury also causes disruption.
Yeah, I mean, we are always channeling the planets so strongly.
That's great. The Geminis get to stay. Chinese has blessed us.
Oh, the whole building. The lights are down, the whole building. Okay.
What? That's just really creepy. Is her laptop charged?
I never thought of Mercury as a creepy planet. Now I'm starting to think it is.
I'm
Should we just film and then when she comes back, she comes back? What do you guys think?
and I'm trying to connect to Zoom, but it's not allowing me.